Hello, my curious friends. Nikki from Dive Into Curiosity, and I want to go ahead and dive into Spain. So, we are going to go ahead and start for mythological creatures. Now, bear with me because I went ahead and picked the most popular, or the ones that were most well known and pretty much the most interesting. So, starting, let's go ahead and talk about something that's a little more familiar with all of us. So when you were little and your tooth was wiggly and you were pulling on it and you yank it out, what would your mom tell you? Put it on a pillow and the tooth fairy will come, right? So I discovered that in Spain, they actually don't believe in a tooth fairy, but something quite similar. They believed in a little mouse named Razzonito. Please forgive me if I have the wrong pronunciation, but I'm pretty sure that's it. I don't know if I can keep the R's up every time I say it, but this little mouse was like their little tooth fairy. It originated in Madrid in about 1877. This story, or this folktale, that they would tell about to their children, just like us talking about the tooth fairy, was first because of one of their kings. So Alfonso the 13th was 8 years old when he lost his first tooth. Now, this story was told to him to help him feel comforted about losing his tooth. And it turned into a nice, in-depth, longer story. And if you want, I will link in the description below one of my sources that I found. I like the way they put the story. It was really cool. So the story goes that he was losing his tooth. He was eating, and it was wiggly. And usually when they would handle anything with his medical, they would do laughing gas. But this time he decided that he wanted to be tough. And so they went ahead and they yanked it out. And they told him, you're going to need to put that underneath your pillow so that Racinito can come and give you a gift for your first tooth. Now, just like any kid, this really intrigued Alfonso. I believe they called him Bubby? Booby? I think it's Bubby. I'm going to say Bubby. And so Alfonso the 13th was incredibly intrigued by this, that he wanted to stay up and meet Racinito. And so he stayed up all night, and just as he was about to fall asleep, Racinito showed up. And he was so intrigued, and they were having a conversation, but then Racinito told him, I have to go to the next child. Alfonso the 13th begged him, please let me come with you. I want to come with you. Racinito said, okay, you can come with me. Now, this is where the story really intrigues me, because it says in the story that Alfonso the 13th, which he was known to be a very kind ruler, it was said that seeing the next child really made him feel quite upset with how other children in his kingdom were. He was so much better off, and this little boy did not have a bed and did not have nice clothes and might not even had food. And it really upset him quite a lot. In fact, he had talked to his mom about it the next day. I just thought this was an amazing way to have insight into someone else's life, on top of also telling a fairy tale, or telling about your tooth fairy for Spain, telling about Racinito. So it was really great, and it's still talked about to this day, and they have a plaque in Madrid explaining about Racinito. So it's just really great. I enjoyed that story. I hope you guys enjoy knowing that they have something like a tooth fairy as well. I found it quite intriguing. Now, moving on, what talk of mythological creatures cannot be completed without dragons? I love talking about dragons in different versions, types, elements, but this one is quite interesting as well. It's brought into Spain's mythology because of their belief system into Catholicism and Christianity. Now, I say a mix of both because technically saints were brought among Catholicism. But in the story, it talks about Christianity, and I'll explain. Whenever I looked it up, it said the same thing, but my book, you guys can see this, my book is St. George and the Dragon, okay? And it says that it took place in Libya. I'm not sure if I'm saying Libya. I'm not sure if I said it right. Please forgive me with my pronunciations. But St. George is a patron of saint in England of knights, archers, and butchers. So, it says it was taking place there. It was taking place in Libya, but I guess they sent St. George to help them. That's what I'm assuming. It said that a bloodthirsty dragon lives by a spring that provides all the water for the city of Cyrene. Whenever the citizens of Cyrene want water, they are faced with an immense beast, aka a dragon. So, now the dragon, with the diet of sheep the citizens fed it, demanded human sacrifice. It's not our Thriller Thursday yet, is it? No. Regardless, moving on. So, the princess was chosen as the next victim, and her father, the king, was distraught. He offered the other citizens all his riches in the hopes that they would spare his daughter, but the citizens refused. So the princess was tied to a wooden stake near the spring. St. George, a soldier of the Roman Empire, see, this is where it gets dicey. It said that St. George was a patron of England. Okay. Then it talks about the Roman Empire. Interesting. Discovers the distressed princess and unties her. St. George charges the dragon on horseback. His sturdy lance penetrates deep enough only to wound the foul creature. Using the princess's sash as a leash, St. George and the princess lead the injured dragon into town. St. George announces he will finish off the dragon if the citizens convert to Christianity. They agree to convert, and St. George draws his sword and kills the dragon. Now, here's the thing. You have to keep in mind that this was a different time. But the reason I bring up St. George and the dragon is when you look up mythological creatures for Spain, which was what really intrigued me when I love looking up different folklores, scary stories, superstitions of other countries. This is what exactly this channel is for. So when I looked it up, this is one of the things that popped up, guys. St. George and the Dragon is something that's very well known in Spain. I thought it was just really intriguing, so I thought I would go ahead and bring it on to this video, since it is something that is involved in Spain's mythological creatures. So, dragon, and look, they even show comparison to human. So, technically, by mythological standards, this is going to sound weird, but it doesn't really sound like a very big dragon. It sounds like a kind of smaller dragon. But nonetheless, dragon. So, dragons and tooth fairies, that's a mouse? Oh my. Moving on though. One of my favorite kinds of mythological creatures and beings are fairies. You'll come to know that I love fairies very much. The Fae are amazing creatures, beings. I like to actually say beings. And this one is called Unjana. I think it's Unjana. And it was said that these fairies, pretty much like most fairies that I read in a good majority of typical fairy tales, and that's another reason why I wanted to make this channel, to get outside of the norm of typical fairy tales and see what we could find. But this one was pretty much like a regular, just fairy. Translucent wings, pretty tall. They didn't say anything about the ears, but long, black, flowy hair with crowns of flowers. And they were known to be very soft-spoken, but have like a melody kind of voice. Almost like singing when you heard them. Instead of like when we think of Tinkerbell's version, it's like bells. But for the Anjanas, it was like music when they talked. It was just very melodious. And they were known to just really love to help people. They like to help. So these fairies were just known to be very helpful. A lot of times when you hear about fairies, they're just very trickstery. No offense to the Fae, but they can be tricksters, but they can also be very helpful too. These ones were just known to be just very helpful. They weren't tricksters at all. And were known to be seen during springtime, dancing. So that's very lovely. I like that. Along with the Fae, we're going to talk about something like gnomes. So these guys were tricksters. Can be a both way kind of thing, I guess you can say. The duendes, they were known to adults. You couldn't see them. And they were known to be either good or bad. It just depended on their mood or depended on what you were doing. So if you had heard that they were in a certain area, you were to know to avoid that area. And then if not, to pay the price. They were known to be possibly quite mean if you were in their area or you disrupted their home. Don't want to do that. But for children could see them, and they love children. They wouldn't hurt children. They would help children out. Another thing that about the duendes was they could come to live in your home, and then they would call them the dueño de casa, or the possessor of a house. And the difference of this, I think it goes both ways. They can be tricksters and pranksters, but then also if you left them things, they could help out with certain things, which I found quite intriguing and cool. It kind of made me think of like the shoemaker elves. Like if he would leave them like treats, and then I think they left them treats, or left them just the material they needed to make the shoes, and then they would make the shoes. Well, the duendes will do something similar. If you left them like treats and stuff, then they would help like with like maybe a project you had in the house or something, which I thought was kind of cool. But you had to be careful because, like I said, they're tricksters. And it goes between like saying they're elves, but also saying they're gnomes. So it depends on which one you're looking at. But yeah, duendes. The dueño de casa. It's pretty cool. All right. So, just starting out for this channel, that is it for the mythological creatures, what I found the most intriguing and the most popular. Well known. things that we could actually connect with them as well, like a tooth fairy. And it just makes you wonder, like, really not that different, are we? Nope, we are not. We all have fun little fables and things that we like to talk about, to help children learn, or to maybe just help childhood be a little more fun and intriguing. So, if you guys have any questions, or you guys have any suggestions that I can do on the next videos, or any countries that you want me to do next, please put that down in the comments, and I will go ahead and take that into account to see which country we can do next. And I'll take into consideration any suggestions. This is an ever-growing channel, and I want us to grow and learn together. So you guys, I hope you have a great day or night, weekend, wherever you are, and please stay curious.